Hello world. It is Tuesday at 2 p.m., which means it's time with Tea with Tina. Time for Tea with Tina? No. Alliteration, y'all. It's alliteration and it is attractive. Oh my God, Jake Tomlin. I'm so excited you're here. Hi. I just love that. The beginning of this brings me joy. Every day I get to see names pop up that I know. I get to see the number get higher in the corner. It's just, what a time to be alive. Oh, I forgot to put my headphones in. I'm a professional. Yeah, I'm a professional. Hi, Jester. Okay, headphones are in. Are they connected is the question. Let us see. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So many of you are here. This brings me so much joy. 30 people. We are off to the races, friends. We're going to go ahead and get started because so many of you here. Aubrey, you made it. You're nailing it. I'm proud of you. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Tea with Tina on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. on the Alpha Gamma Delta International Headquarters Facebook page. I am so glad that you are here. For those of you that don't know who I am, hi, I'm Tina. I am a professional public speaker. I own my own business and my world revolves around women. I talk to women. I try to help women. I am a woman and I am on a mission to help women feel less alone in the world. It's my favorite thing on earth to do. And Tea with Tina is just one of the many ways I get to do that. I get to do that with Alpha Gamma Delta because I am in fact a member of Alpha Gamma Delta. And we're going to talk about sorority in a couple weeks because Founders Day is coming up. So of course we're going to talk about sorority. But we have other things to chat about today, but we have a little Alpha Gamma Delta business to get it out of the way first, not get out of the way because it's a celebration. Alpha Gamma Delta headquarters has been partnering with a company to collect survey data on our collegiate women. We're hopeful to learn about their well-being, about their sisterhood, about what their chapter experience feels like for them. And so we sent the survey out to collegians. And for chapters that got a 90% response rate, which is bonkers, by the way, for chapters that got a 90% response rate, those chapters were then entered into a raffle, and the raffle winner was drawn this week. And I don't know how I get this privilege, but I get to announce the winner. So I don't know if they're here, but we're going to announce them anyway, and then we'll make sure that they are notified soon. But the winner of the Alpha Gamma Delta Survey Collegiate Chapter Raffle is, drumroll, the Theta Delta Chapter of Alpha Gamma Delta at the University of North Georgia. Congratulations, ladies. Thank you for participating in the survey. Someone from headquarters will be reaching out to you soon with your gift certificate to the Alpha Gamma Delta Boutique. What a time to be alive. You all are ridiculous, and I love you for your comments about my hair. Thank you. So that is the Alpha Gamma Delta business. Here's what we're going to do today. Today's Tea with Tina time is a little bit of a quarantine check-in, but mostly I think today is a little bit of Q&A time. Okay, I have a little bit that I want to talk to you about, but mostly I want to answer your questions. Okay, if there are questions you have about quarantine, about working from home, about being an entrepreneur, about food, tattoos, relationships, there's literally nothing you could ask me that I won't answer. I want it to feel really free-flowing and I want it to be helpful. I told you I want to help women feel better and less alone in the world. So I want to know what questions you have, what things you're wondering about, and I will answer them, but also I want you all to engage with each other in the chat and respond to people's questions and answer them yourselves because I am but one voice and I think more voices are more powerful. So I want you to start dreaming and thinking of questions. I want you to start typing them and tossing them into the chat right now. While you do that, I'm going to tell you about something in the quarantine world that I have been thinking more about than I have in years. And it is the idea of perfection. I used to be a perfectionist. First of all, more women than men are perfectionists. That does not mean that men are not, but this plagues women more. This also plagues women of color more because when you feel like you are when you are climbing a steep hill, when you are up against a stereotype that is built against you, we feel as if we have to perform at a higher standard. We have to output more. We have to be perfect so that there can be nothing that they can find to manipulate us, critique us, make us feel less than, right? So this is a thing. And for me, it was very, very, very present in my brain when I was in high school. I was very dedicated to my studies. Like my schoolwork was like the most important thing on earth to me. I was incredibly organized. I was very type A. I was very detail oriented. I would even go as far as to say I was very anal retentive. Straight A's were the expectation in my household, and straight A's is what we got. And that was just the way that I existed in the world. And then I went to college, and I'm a first generation college student. And so then getting to college was like, I cannot mess this up, right? I have to do this right. I have to do this perfectly. So the level of perfectionism sort of escalated as I went to college. My grades, my coursework, and then my involvement, right? The way that I became involved in all of the things, the way that I focused on my involvement, the way that I tried to be perfect in every single one of my positions at all possible times. You remember DVDs? I used to have like the DVD organizers where they were displayed and they had like little individual slots and they would be on either side of my TV. Any one of the kids that I was friends with in college can tell you about these because I was very particular about their alphabetical arrangement. And my friends would come over and knock them down or rearrange them or just put like a G where the C's are just to make my brain explode. And I would flip out. I would flip out every time. I was very, very focused on being in control and being as perfect as humanly possible all the way through college. And then I went to grad school and I don't know if I chilled out a little bit. I don't know the right way to talk about it, but my clinch sort of released a little bit. Felt a little calmer, felt a little less stressed, and a little less concerned about being a perfectionist, about having it all together all the time. And because of that, because of the unclenching, because of the releasing of some of those expectations for myself, I used to, in fact, I just did 10 minutes ago, say I used to be a perfectionist. That's hilarious because it's not past tense. It's not past tense. And I got an aggressive reminder of that just a couple of weeks ago. I reached out to the Women's Entrepreneur Network here in the Twin Cities. I, as a woman entrepreneur, have been feeling a lot of things in quarantine about my business and about how to pivot and creativity and purpose and all these things. And so I reached out to this network to ask if I could do some programming for other women entrepreneurs in the Twin Cities. And we scheduled it, and it was like my first Zoom professional appearance, right? So I like went into Zoom and scheduled the webinar and felt like a boss. Like I like sent them the link. We were so prepared. I wrote new curriculum. We're like ready to go. And then the day before the event happened, Laura, who's the woman who works with me, and I were like, wait, on Zoom, what's the difference between a webinar and a meeting? Turns out a webinar is much like this, where I can't see your faces. And a meeting is where we all can see everybody's faces, everybody can interact, we can put people into breakout rooms, all those things. Well, I'm Tina, right? So all the curriculum that I had written for this meeting was interactive. There were breakout rooms scheduled, there were opportunities for women to connect and share stories. And so like a webinar wasn't gonna work. Cool. So now what? We paid attention to the registration link, and according to my Zoom account, only 2 people had registered for this event. Okay, great, pressure's off. It's not gonna be perfect. We can redirect those 2 people to a meeting that morning, no stress, not a big deal. And then I reached out to the client the day before just to make sure that they're ready to go. And I said, there's only 2 people registered, so if you want me to do this again at another time, I'm happy to do it again. And they sent me an email back and was like, there's not 2 people, there's 40 people registered. Cool. So, what do I do? In the next 12 hours, do I completely rewrite the presentation? What do we do? So Laura and I started brainstorming. We decided we could totally pull this off. We could convert it from a webinar to a meeting. We just needed to do some link swapping, and then that morning we would log into the accounts and send people to the right account, and it would be seamless and easy and no problem at all. It will come as no surprise to any of you that it was not seamless. And then that did not work. It was an absolute mess. Laura and I were on the phone while I started this webinar, while we were trying to schedule it was a mess. It ended up that only 11 of the 40 people who registered got the correct meeting information and were able to be there. They participated in the curriculum, but the whole time I was talking, I was so not present. I was shaky in my delivery. It was not the level of excellence that I expect from myself in my work, right? The whole time. And I just kept thinking about those 30-something people who weren't able to be there with us because we messed this up. I messed this up. I failed. And I don't fail. All right, but I'm not a perfectionist. Okay, Tina. Okay. I spent the rest of the day totally ashamed, like genuinely ashamed. I was embarrassed. I didn't even want to email the client the recording. So I was like, I don't know that anybody needs to see this. I don't know that we need to share that with the world. I was annoyed. I was like on edge all day because I was so mad that I had messed this up. I spent the whole day making self-deprecating jokes around my husband, who was giving me his face of like, this is uncomfortable, but I don't know what I'm supposed to say right now. So it was really frustrating. I tell women to give themselves grace and to treat themselves with kindness. And I had 1 moment, 1 hour of professional less than excellence on a new technology that I don't know, right? Zoom is not typically the way that I do my job, right? This is brand new stuff for me in quarantine. Never in my life was I doing Zoom presentations before COVID-19 happened. And even though I teach this, even though I tell women to be kind to themselves, I spent the entire day in a shame hole, actively shitting on myself for not doing a good enough job for my clients, for not showing up for them the way that they deserved, for not being perfect. Because as it turns out, I am still very much a perfectionist. Maybe not about everything. I think I've learned to let go some of those expectations about some things, but I am absolutely still somebody who cares deeply about perfection. We've talked about this before on Tina, but I don't do things that I'm not good at. I think karaoke is so fun. It is one of my favorite things to do. There are a few things I enjoy more than sitting in a bar and watching people sing songs that I'm also singing out loud, but I will never get up and perform karaoke because I know I'm not a good singer and it makes me uncomfortable. I am one of those people who is weirdly competitive in board games, like needlessly competitive in board games. I freaking hate to lose at board games. Or like these Zoom games we're playing now with our friends. It ruins my day. It makes me so mad. And I, in my job, expect a lot of myself. In my job, I expect excellence. I expect perfection. And I'm observing more and more in quarantine that is something that I expect of myself. Because the truth of the matter is, in quarantine, the world is giving more grace, especially in the professional world. I think people are giving more grace, right? Because now all of a sudden we know that you've got kids at home that you normally aren't qualified or comfortable homeschooling, but now you have to homeschool them while you have a full-time job. So people are a little bit more forgiving, right? I think people know that output is a little slow because we're all figuring out how to pivot. I think people are giving more grace to humans because we're all trying to figure out this unbelievably new and weird normal. But I'm not giving that grace to myself. I'm giving it to other people. If I have clients that don't email me back within a week, no part of me is stressed about that because I'm just assuming that they've got a lot going on. But I'm not giving myself that same grace. I missed an email to one of my clients. I was supposed to send it. I didn't. And then by the time I figured it out, I sent her this lengthy apology about, I can't believe I dropped the ball and I'm so sorry and I want to serve you and I want to be so helpful and I feel terrible and I'm so hopeful that I can still be helpful. And she literally emailed me back and was like, Tina, it's really no big deal, and it's also quarantine, so it's fine. We're still good. It's not a problem. She was so willing, and I was not. So, I think quarantine presents us with a unique opportunity to stop stressing about perfection, because I don't know that perfection can exist in quarantine. The world doesn't make sense anymore. Nothing makes sense anymore. Is time even a thing? Am I wearing pants right now? Nobody knows. There is no perfection anymore. There's no great. We're all just trying to survive. And so can I give myself a little bit more space and a little bit more grace and a little bit more kindness that, like, listen, no, that email's not going to be 100% on time. No, this presentation isn't going to be perfect because I'm human, and now I'm a human sitting in leggings in my living room. And that's very much not the way I used to do my job. It's like when we talk to our friends, I've been trying really hard to do this. I've been trying really hard. You know, no, normally people say, how are you? And we're like, oh, I'm good. Now I've been trying really hard to stop doing that because I'm not good. I am several other things. I am highly emotional. I'm overwhelmed. I'm tired. I'm confused. I'm would really like to go outside. I'd really like to be served at a restaurant, right? Like, I got a lot of things happening, but good isn't one of them. My standard answer no longer applies because nothing is standard anymore. So where can I stop just like flippantly responding with, oh, I'm fine or I'm good, right? Lindsay Jarman, who is a staff member and a sister of Alpha Gamma Delta, has actually said it better than anybody. Every time I talk to her, she does not tell me she's good. Every time she's like, I'm the okayest I've ever been. And that's her response. And I believe that she means that because that's very fair and accurate and well articulated. We don't have to just say I'm fine because fine's not our thing anymore. And we don't have to be perfect because perfect's not a thing anymore. Everybody is navigating new territory. Everybody is swimming through new waters. And so I'm trying new recipes in my little kitchen, and they're not perfect, but that's okay because it's new. And I'm trying new workouts that make my body feel weird, and that's okay because they're new. And I'm reading new books that I would normally never read, and that's okay. We're all trying new things, and frankly, we're all trying to survive. So I'm trying to turn down the voices of perfectionism that I thought didn't exist anymore, but turns out still very much exist. And instead, trying to give myself some space. Nobody is perfect in real life. Certainly nobody is perfect in quarantine. So where can I be a little bit kinder to myself? Where can you be a little bit kinder to yourself? That's what I've been thinking about this week. So I am curious what questions you have. I'm going to scroll back up in the chat for a minute and see what questions you've asked, but I would love for you to toss some questions in here about things you're thinking about, things you're wondering about, things you're dreaming about. Again, like there are literally no rules. If you've seen me speak in public, you know this. Like, I let the students ask me whatever they want, and there is not a question that I will not answer. So that is very, those rules still very much apply here. So anything that you'd like to talk about, I am happy to talk about, including perfectionism, but also outside of that. So type some questions in here, and please do it because otherwise nobody will do it. And then I'm just gonna look at you for the next 10 minutes, and that's awkward. So type some stuff in here while I look at all these humans. It makes me so happy to see all of you here. Hello. Oh, Julie's here. Hello. Michelle, that is so very real, right? Grew up feeling like I need to be 3 times as good to be seen on the same level. I hear this a lot from our women who are in the STEM world, right? Or male-dominated fields, that they have to work 3 times as hard. They have to show up 10 times more. They have to try 10 times harder. Not because they're not capable of keeping up, but because the expectation is that they're not capable of keeping up. And so they have to push and push and push, right? And so I think you are not alone. I think a lot of women feel that way in the world. Fear of failure is something that Kara, I'm really glad that you shared that, because I didn't know how deep that river ran in my brain until I started working with my coach again. And the fear of failing and the fear of letting people down is like aggressively loud in my brain. And we can get into the psychology of where it comes from and what happens when you have a parent who doesn't love you, but that's a whole other thing. We're not going to get into that today. But I just those are some of my primary motivations in my life, which is hilarious because failure teaches me a lot of things. You know what I learned that morning with that webinar? I learned a lot about Zoom. I sure did. I learned a lot about Zoom that I have now been able to apply to the rest of my Zoom career, which will now turns out be extended and lengthy and a lot. And so the cheesy thing about like failure teaches us lessons is 100% real. It absolutely does. And so it's my biggest fear, but also my biggest teacher, which is something interesting to think about. Yes, and it is very often self-imposed. Oh, I love when you're talking to each other. That makes me very happy. What Zoom games would you recommend for small and large groups? Oh, this is a really fun question. Thank you for asking. So Quiplash is a super fun Zoom game. And it's actually several games in one, but you can play like a trivia game. One of my favorite things that Quiplash does is it'll ask, let's say there's 4 of us, right? My husband and I, and then 2 other people. And it'll ask you to answer 2 of the questions randomly, and everybody's getting asked different questions. And you're supposed to try to be funny or silly. And then everybody's like 2 people are answering the same question. Their answers get thrown up on the screen. And then we're supposed to vote which one we think is the funniest. So it's kind of like Cards Against Humanity, but with like public group voting. It's really silly and fun. And Quiplash has a lot of we played the most random game on Sunday night. It's called TKO. It's called T-shirt knockout, I think. It's on Quiplash. And like you draw little pictures, like Pictionary style, and then you come up with a bunch of silly sayings and you mix and match them to make silly t-shirts. And then the whole group votes about which t-shirt is the silliest or the funniest or whatever. So I find that, and that one is straight through Zoom. You can play it on Zoom. The other one we've had a ton of fun playing, which I actually think you could play with also 3 or 4 people, is called Codenames, which is an actual board game that they've turned into something you can play online. And so we do it a lot with our friends Dan and Laura, and so we play boys against girls, and I have to give Laura a clue to guess a couple words at one time, but I'm only allowed to give her a 1-word clue. So I have to connect words like cloak and Australia and straw and sunshine, and I have to find a through line in 1 word, and she's got to try to make her brain work the same way my brain works. It's really fun. It's really fun, and that's the one we lost last time, and I got really mad. But otherwise, generally speaking, it's a really fun game. And then I'm always a proponent of Hangouts. It's not through Zoom. You have to download the app itself. But Hangouts, you can play apples to apples, although they call it chips and guac, which is adorable. You can play trivia. You can play heads up, which is just one of my favorites. So like, even though people are all far apart, and then as many people can come into the house. So I think House Party is a hoot and a half. So I would suggest that. Ange, first of all, hi, I love you. Second of all, Ange asks, how are you dealing with motivation or lack thereof and creative blocks? Sis, I'm not. I don't know how else to answer that. I am not dealing with them well. I am not. I'm having airports were a place where I used to feel really creative. Airplanes is a place I used to feel very creative. Out on the road is where I did most of my dreaming and building and scheming. And then when I came home was such a rest place for me. And so now I have to try to be creative and purposeful and all the things in my place of rest, which I know a lot of you who are now new to working from home are feeling that, right? This is the place where I'm supposed to stop working, and now you're telling my couch is right there. Tell me how I'm supposed to be productive. My couch is right there. What I am trying to do, 2 things that I'm trying to do to give myself space, because shaming myself into being productive and creative is not effective. It doesn't work. It's just me yelling at myself, and turns out I don't like to be yelled at. So that is ineffective. What I've been trying to do is listen to my body. Okay, so I had a day last week. I started Know My Name by Chanel Miller, which is an unbelievable, outrageous book. And I think every single person in the world, every human, but I believe every man in the world needs to read. It's incredible. And I was just only going to read a chapter or 2. And I was so connected to this woman's story and so drawn into the way that she wrote this book that I just wanted to keep reading. And I had some things on my to-do list that I was supposed to get done, but I was tired and drawn to this book. And so I kept reading. I spent like 6 or 7 hours that day reading this book. And that's not a normal Tina move, but it's just like My brain was screaming at me. My body was screaming at me. And so I just did it. And then the next morning when I woke up, I got up a little bit earlier. I did some yoga, I made some coffee, and then focused on my to-do list that I didn't get done. And tried really hard not to feel badly about that because it's what my body needed. This morning when my alarm went off, I was like, I just can't. And I slept for another 30 minutes because that's what my body needed to do. And if I tried to force myself up, I just would have spent that 30 minutes staring at my computer screen, not able to focus up. Now, I don't have children and I work for myself. So those tactics might not work for everybody else. But I find that if I listen to my body instead of trying to force my body to do something it doesn't want to do, I set myself up for more success. I've also given myself permission to work in the evenings. My husband is crazy productive from the hours of like 11 p.m. till 3 in the morning. It's his jam. I cannot stay up that late, but I can sit down on my computer when we're done with dinner, and from like 9 to 10:30, I can crush some work. And it's obviously not when you're supposed to crush work, but because there's not other distractions, because the sun isn't shining, begging for me to go step outside, I can just like lock in. And so giving myself permission to do that, which might mean there's an hour and a half in my normal work day that I'm not productive because I'm choosing to do it in the later evenings, that sets me up for success. So don't be afraid to shift your schedule to allow yourself to feel a little bit more naturally motivated or creative. I hope that that's helpful. Jackbox games, yes, that's what they're called. You're absolutely right. What else do we have in here? Are they free? I believe so. I think somebody already responded to you, but I believe so. Oh, Debbie's talking about perfectionism and failure. That's a really good point, Debbie. This idea that we need to get over ourselves, right? That's a really good point. And that language is challenging for me because I kind of feel like I'm being mean to myself. Like, oh, you just need to get over yourself. Because if I was talking to somebody else, it would not be a kind comment. If I was like, she just needs to get over herself. Like, I don't mean that nicely. So what I've been trying to do instead is change it to, I need to take myself a little less seriously, right? Like that webinar that I did for that client, it was a volunteer thing. I was just trying to be helpful. And like, it didn't need to be perfect. It just needed to be helpful. And so like, if I didn't walk in like so serious, like this is my job and I'm excellent, I'm gonna do, so like if I had just like toned it down a little bit and found a way to take it a little less seriously, to take myself a little less seriously, to laugh and to be able to say to them like, listen, technology is a mess this morning and I did it wrong and I'm sorry, but I still think that this is gonna be productive, and move on. I think it would have been better if I could have just laughed at myself a little bit and taken it and life in that moment a little less seriously. I totally agree with that. What other questions are you asking here? Come on, let's scroll. Ooh, Michelle, this is a great question. Any suggestions for how to deal on social media to break the everything is perfect phoniness? That's a really great question. I actually had this conversation with myself today. I was like, Tina, you're talking about not trying to be a perfectionist, so maybe you should like not do your hair and makeup when you show up on Tea with Tina today. I did my hair and my makeup because I don't know, this is my job, and right, Alpha Gamma is a client of mine, and I don't know that I did the right thing here. But on my Instagram story, especially, I try really hard to post pictures, to talk to the camera, to show up in a non-perfect way, right? Like if you follow me on Instagram, at Tina Rayvan, if you follow me on Instagram, you will see a lot of videos of me like hair up in a very crooked, very dirty hair bun with no makeup on, sitting on my couch in a sweatshirt that clearly belongs to my husband, pontificating about the world, right? Like, and I try really hard not to put this like I'm polished and put together all the time stuff on Instagram. I've also tried to unfollow accounts that make me feel like I'm supposed to be that way. I try to follow other women who show up that way because it makes me feel more emboldened to show up that way. It gives me permission to do that. So I try to follow accounts that remind me of those things. There's a lot of really badass women who exist on Instagram to sort of shake the perfectionism. There's a lot of fashion bloggers who do the same thing. I follow a lot of like really amazing women artists who post really beautiful work that is about celebrating imperfectionism. And like, I also follow accounts that like give me permission to be a human, right? Like One of the accounts that I follow, sorry, this might make some of you uncomfortable, but one of the accounts that I follow is called The Period Feels or something like that. And it's literally a bunch of comic strips and art and hilariousness about why periods are a pain in the ass. Like, that's it. And it makes me laugh every day. It's like, oh, right, I'm a person, I'm a woman, and this is a part of my life. And like, I can be that human. I don't have to exist like a robot on the internet. So, I try really hard to do that. And I try to do it because I know there are women following my account who might look up to me. And if I showed up perfect every single day, what lesson does that teach them? So if when you are on social media, you can remind yourself that there are people in the world that look at you and take on the example that you set in the world, that we can show up a little less perfect for them. I think that might be helpful. Deborah, what has been the hardest challenge of not being in quarantine? Or being in quarantine. Not being in quarantine. What a life. The hardest challenge of not being in quarantine for me has been that my entire business is very, very different. And has required us, my partner and I, to, I don't even know if pivot is the right word anymore, but to completely change course. Candidly, our business was doing very well and we were cruising. 2020 was set to be our best year yet. We had just incorporated together, my husband and I, and went from 2 separate businesses to one business, and things were looking really good, and we were on fire. And then in the matter of 5 days, this train went from going 90 miles an hour to a giant brick wall was built on the tracks, and everything stopped. And I had a really hard time wrapping my brain around that. Because even though I'm a small business owner and even though I'm an entrepreneur, and nothing's ever guaranteed, there was just no, I mean, a lot of you are feeling this in your industries, right? There was no pre-warning, right? There was it just happened quickly. And so there wasn't even like a slow decline where we were able to like rethink things, right? It was just like, this is over, you need to fix your stuff. So that was really hard for me. I pouted about it for a long time because I never set out to start an online education business. I'm a professional public speaker. That is my job. That is my gift. And that's what I planned to do. And so trying to figure out how to do that, especially when I couldn't travel. That was the other really hard part for me, is that I can't travel. I've never, in the last 7 years, I have never been in the same place this many days in a row. So that's the other hard part, is feeling a little restless. Those have been the biggest challenges for me. Oh, Alpha Gam trivia. I don't know how well I would do with that, but that would be really fun. That would be really fun, but I'd probably lose and I'd probably get mad about it because I hate losing board games, even electronic board games. Oh yeah, that's real. Yeah, honesty is complicated right now because some people aren't ready to hear the truth. Whether it be about COVID-19 or anything, right? Some people just aren't ready given all the feelings that we have. And so being a truth teller right now is a very challenging thing, Lisa Ann. I totally agree with that. Oh, you're saying hi to each other? I love this. Yes, shifting the mindset at work. Exercise, that's real. Separate workspace, that's really helpful. Yeah, that does help shift my mindset, but even sometimes that I'm sitting at the computer being like, just like, sometimes getting out of that space I created as work is also helpful, right? Like going for a walk, sitting in the park. I know some of you can't sit in parks. Just walking around your apartment. This is getting sad, but that's an option too. Balance. Oh, Allison, the book. Girl. The book is called Know My Name. Chanel Miller. If you all remember, a few years ago, there was a sexual assault committed at Stanford University by a student named Brock Turner. And he was found guilty of 3 felony counts of sexual assault. And then the judge only sentenced him to 6 months because he didn't want to ruin this promising young man's life. And said that to the victim while she was sitting in the courtroom. And she wrote this really powerful victim statement and we knew her as Emily Doe for a really, really, really long time because her identity was able to be kept secret. And then finally, she decided to tell the world her name and her story in her own words and wrote this book called Know My Name. And it is powerful and eloquent and emotional and important. So, yeah, read it. She's a boss. She's really special. Oh, Barb puts a little effort into her appearance to feel a little motivated. That is no joke, y'all. I was not feeling well this morning, and now, I mean, a little bit of makeup, a little bit of hair, some earrings can change everything. I'm definitely still wearing leggings, socks, and Birkenstocks at my waist down, but I do feel like a human for a minute, so I totally agree with that. Yes. Thank you, Debbie. That's a really kind compliment. I agree I can't do Twitter, Lisa Ann. I totally agree with that. Deborah, what advice would you give sorority women who try to keep up with everything going on and finishing school for the semester? Woof. Woof. We talk about this a lot in my household. We serve college students. There are humans. They are people. I could not imagine being in college right now. That is so stressful and insane and hard to wrap our brains around. I would say to those women, I would say all you can do is your best, first of all. And you're the only one that gets to decide what your best is. Okay? That's not a GPA. That's not a grade on a test. You are the only one that's able to decide what your best is. And if your best effort that day isn't an A, you're living in all new circumstances, and some of you moved back home, and some of you are living with friends or boyfriends or girlfriends or people you don't normally spend as much time with, and some of you are no longer allowed to do lab or clinicals, or being a college student right now may have completely turned your world upside down. You might also be in unsafe or uncomfortable environments where focusing on school is literally not possible. And so all you can do is your best. And know that the world is seeing you try your best. And there will be, I don't know what the end looks like, right? This is not permanent. We will not live like this forever. But it is your circumstances right now. And so all you can do is do your best and take care of yourself. Sleep. Sleep. College students are really good at doing a lot of things in the health department, but sleep is not one of them. Give yourself 7 to 8 hours of sleep. It will drastically help. It will drastically change the way that your brain works. Give yourself the opportunity to breathe. Meditate. We've been doing some meditating around here, and it helps. It actually makes a really big difference in the way that my brain exists in the world. But you're doing, all you can do is your best. The only other thing I would tell you is that you're not alone. And some of your sorority sisters are also going through this. And so you don't have to isolate yourself. Reach out to one of your sorority sisters and vent, cry, yell, because when you're done crying, venting, and yelling, you'll feel better. You'll feel a cleanse, a release of all these emotions that you're carrying around, and it will help you focus. You can do it, and it is not easy, but you can do hard things because you're a woman, and women are badass. That's what I would say. I love when you talk to each other. It makes my whole day. Using my planner. That's real, Bridgette. I'm a bullet journaler. So I could show you, but it's all the way on the other side of the table. I build my own planner. Actually, Karen Donaldson-Metzger, who's on the board of Alpha Gamma Delta, taught me about this. And it's you build your bullet journal. You build I've never found the planner that works perfectly for me. Erin Condren comes very close, but I've never found the planner that works perfectly for me. And then there were always pages that were wasted and they get really expensive. And so now I buy a blank notebook and I create my own planner. So for me, weekly planners they aren't helpful for me. I use my Google Calendar, and so that's what guides me week to week. But a month planner, setting some goals on the front end. I have a sleep tracker. Here, I will show you. Hang on, just give me 1 second. It's complicated to explain. So So I like create my own little space. And I have a habit tracker, I have a sleep tracker, I have my monthly planner, and then I have every day I try to write something I'm grateful for. So creating this has been really helpful for me. It's just like a little bit of creativity, a little bit of like art. I don't know if it's really qualified as art. It's just me and some markers and some washi tape, but it makes me feel different. It like helps me focus up. So I really have enjoyed creating my own planner, but using your planner to give yourself some structure in a world that feels very unstructured is super smart. So I love that you're doing that. And if you're interested in bullet journaling, Google it. It's like a thing. You can follow hashtags on Instagram or Pinterest. It's no joke. It is no joke. So love me a good planner. Yep, there's so many electronic solutions too, right? You're 100% right. Oh, you're missing each other. You're just loving each other out loud. I love that. Do you have any other questions, ladies or gentlemen, our friends in the house? Well, type them if you do. I know that we have at least, I think we have 2 Teas with Tina left this month. Alpha Gam and I are still trying to figure out if they will continue past May, so we will wait and see. I think next week, this is going to be so exciting, my husband is going to join us for Tea with Tina next week, so that's really fun. We're going to talk about relationships in quarantine. We're going to talk about friendships. We're going to talk about romantic relationships. And then probably do a little bit of question and answer also. So he's just delightful. I'm a fan of his. So I would highly recommend you coming to hang out with him. And I think we're going to have a really fun time. And then the week after that is the week of Founders Day. And so we're going to talk a lot about sisterhood and sorority. So that one will be a little bit more focused for sorority. I know some of you are not sorority women. You should still come because sisterhood is something that belongs to everybody, not just sorority women. So I think that you should come, but just know that that's what we're going to chat about. So there are a few other questions here. Just one. Deborah asked, what would you say is the best way to keep up with everyone that you're not on the same schedule with? I don't know. This is a question that plagues my normal life because normally I fly all the time. And so my schedule is bonkers and catching up with people on a week-to-week basis is challenging. So I would say house party has been really fun because sometimes I just like pop in to house party and then my friends get a little notification that says Tina's in the house. And then we just have like these random hangouts, which has been really delightful. So that's a fun way to do it. I also don't know if you use the app Marco Polo, but I would look into Marco Polo. You can leave video messages, and unlike a Snapchat or an Instagram where they disappear, these ones don't. And so you can sort of just have like a continuous conversation face to face, even if you can't be on the same schedule. So I have a couple friends where we leave each other little silly Marco Polos, but then I have a couple other people who like leave like full-on life updates on a Marco Polo, and then I come in and then do the same thing. So those are the 2 things that I would say now. But also because so many more people are quarantined, if people are home on quarantine, they have a little bit more flexibility in their schedule. So we've talked during the day for 30 minutes because we needed a break and it was helpful. So I think we just have to get creative about it is what I would say. And there's some technology that can help. Oh, you got Marco Polo fans in here. I love it. Yes, it's exactly right. You're not committing to like a long conversation, but you're still dropping some stuff in there. I love that. I love that you love Tea with Tina. I'm so glad that you come every week. I am so grateful. Alpha Gamma Delta is so grateful. It just warms my heart to see women connecting over meaningful things every week. So thank you for being here this week. I hope you don't mind if I bring a man with me next week. He's just one of my favorite men in the world. So I think it's going to be worth our time. But I will be back next Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Alpha Gamma Delta Facebook page. Thank you for being here. Stay safe and try to let perfectionism go this week. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.